Welcome to a new presentation running 50 days in Vietnam, in which I consolidate my learnings and experiences over my first 2000 kilometer solo ultra run self-supported through the mountains of northeast Vietnam. There are three parts. This part will talk about the why and about ultra running in detail. The second part will focus on route planning and preparation, and the final part will talk about the actual journey and the challenges. You can watch this and many other webinars on my YouTube channel, Van Gep, and the blog ultrajourneys.org, and a 10-minute preview is available on InstaTV and as well as Facebook. So in this webinar, we'll talk about the why, a little bit about my touring history on different ways, biking originally, then mountain biking, and in more recent times, running and fast hiking. We'll talk about what is ultra running exactly, how to prepare, route planning, preparation, and finally the journey. Let's talk about the why. So this picture actually beautifully highlights the difference between daily life in our cities and escaping to nature on a long self-supported run. On top you can feel the emotions of chaos, pollution, stress, noise, toxic environment actually for the mind and the body, while even though you're actually going on a long endurance journey, either running or cycling or whatever, the lower part is all about peacefulness, a clean environment, clean air, clean oxygen, peaceful natural environment for the mind, detox for the body, where you can completely refresh yourself and even call it as an inner journey to rediscover yourself. So why do we go on long self-supported ultra runs? Asking this question will bring different answers from different people. I try to summarize a couple of important ones here. I think one important thing that we all do as part of travel is to break the daily routine. The daily routine of the repetitive thing of commuting to office, getting up, brushing your teeth, sitting in meetings in office, cooking food at home is actually a mental killer. It's too repetitive. There is no mental stimulation there. So it's important that once in a while we get out in nature, in beautiful remote places, on a long journey where we come across a lot of interesting experiences and challenges that will entice the mind and that will again blow life into our dead routine lives. We want to get away from hectic life, of course, away from the stress and the daily deadlines. Just be yourself, wander peacefully in nature with no real targets. This is only possible, of course, in longer journeys, not in typically the corporate 1 or 2 weeks leave where you immediately start counting the number of days before you have to catch your return flight. Wandering in nature is obviously peaceful for the mind. There's no disturbance there, no noise, complete sound, soothing sounds of nature, the sound of the wind in the mountains, the sound of the streams in the mountains, the sound of the birds. It's so relaxing for the mind. To travel is to live beautiful locations close to nature. So as you go through these long ultra journeys in the mountains, you come across unseen, natural, beautiful locations which definitely soothe the mind and the soul. A lot of new experiences, obviously, as you go on a self-supported run. You'll have to manage completely by yourself with a minimalistic gear set. As a runner, you can not carry more than 3-4 kg. And you'll have to fetch your food, find a place to stay at the end of the night. You don't know where you're going to end up at the next turn of the valley or the next pass crossing. So it's definitely a lot of exciting experiences, learningful experiences. It's a little bit scary and initially as stepping into the unknown, going solo in a new country, not speaking the language. At the same time, that unknown has a certain thrill to it. It keeps your mind enticed, it keeps you the adrenaline running in your body and makes you actually feel much more alive than sitting like a dead body in a corporate cubicle. Climate, of course, is mostly pleasant in the mountains. We go to higher altitudes. We're not stuck in a hot, humid environment like Chennai City or Delhi or Mumbai. And then, of course, the people we meet on these long journeys in these remote regions will still be innocents, not corrupted in the mind by the money and the injustice in the cities, but still you'll experience a lot of humanity and hospitality in these regions. So a lot of reasons basically to take a break and get out there to rediscover the beautiful planet while life is indeed very short. A small history on my long journeys. Initially, still here when I was working, so all kind of limited to 1 or 2 week leaves. I did quite a few long tours in the 2018 time frame. Initially on a Enfield Bullet, then on a mountain bike, and then through ultra running. On my bike, the Enfield Lightning 535cc, I did my first trip to the Himalayas, Delhi, Manali, Keelong in 2000, so 10 years ago. Needs to be celebrated, I guess. It should have been around in this time, July, August. I got stuck on a massive landslide and returned the next year again to proceed. In that case, I was able to go to Leh and the Nubra Valley, which you can see there on the top left. 2008, I repeated the same, this time through the beautiful Spiti Valley, and I ended another beautiful bullet ride with a pillion going again on the Manali Leh side and then proceeding to Srinagar on National Highway 1. So very interesting journeys, mostly solo, self-supported, right? You have a mechanical vehicle here that can break down in the middle of nowhere, so quite challenging in some places. After 2013, I got my first mountain bike and I fell in love with it. Since then, my bullets have been gathering dust in my storeroom. 2013, I did a big one, 1,000 kilometers from Shimla to Leh through the Spiti Valley and then along the Manali Leh highway. 2 years later, I did 800 kilometer touring in the central Sri Lanka mountains, national parks, very beautiful, again fully self-supported with a minimal set of luggage on the back, including camping gear. So that time I was not staying in any lodges or tent camps like I usually did in the Himalayas. And then in 2016, I did a big tour, 800 kilometers across the mountains in North Vietnam with my cycle. So these again were very learning experiences. Then in 2014 onwards, I started actually running, more ultra running, you can say. Initially, I did a Navagraha temple run, 135 kilometers over 3 days. So that was an amazing experience. 2015 was my first ultra run through the Himalayas, through the Spiti Valley, some 600 kilometers. The same year through the Pangi Valley, another 600 kilometers. And then I did a solo run. Previous runs were always in group with a few runners and cyclists. In 2016, I did my first solo run, which was a breakthrough, I would say, from Pangi to Ladakh across the Shingong La, the top left picture you see there, across one of these shaky hanging bridges across the Sarab River here near Puchtol Gompa in Zanskar. So that was a bit scary as that was the first time that I was really running in the remote mountains with just a small backpack, not even a tent, so a little bit depending on finding a proper shelter at the end of each day. 2017, I did a big one. That was the Spiti Pangis 800 kilometer run across 2 weeks over these two remote valleys. One thing I've learned over motorcycling than mountain biking and running is that your transport defines your experience. Speed is inverse proportional to experience, I would say. The faster you go through a landscape, especially on a motorcycle, the less intense the experience will be. On a bike, you will typically go fairly quick, which on bad roads means that you are mostly pretty concentrated on the road ahead of you in order not to slip anywhere or to fall down a ravine. Cycle is a little better, you go a bit slower and you push yourself a bit slower, so you have more time to take in your surroundings. But then nothing compares to ultra running in the mountains where you proceed fairly slowly, just 40-50 kilometers per day, but you take in the experience and the surroundings much more intense, which I clearly have experienced. As you go through run through 1,000 kilometer section, you will actually remember every single turn and every single landscape along that running journey. I also have like a race history. With race, I mean like organized race events, both international as well as in India. So again, since here you see my race schedule a couple of years ago, over an entire year, you can see more than 20 big runs, mostly like 100 or sometimes 100 miles, kilometer in the mountains during almost half of the weekends of the entire year. I ran the Grand Raid de Pyrénées in France, the Grand Raid Reunion in Reunion Island, Todre in Italy, in the Italian Alps. Two beautiful races in Thailand, Panoramic and Ultra Trail Unseen Ko Chang. And then a couple of local ultra runs in India, like the Paradise Goa and the Malnat Ultra in Karnataka. So those were amazing experiences, because from there actually I started actually running again over very long distances. This is 100 or 100 milers or 100 kilometers. So you run almost for 20, 30, 40 hours constantly with a lot of elevation gain, and really tune your body for such hectic endurance. As you run longer, I would say beyond the marathon, it's more like a mental game than a physical game. Your body actually becomes quite strong as you practice regularly, but it's the mind that tends to fail, and that has to be hardened due to these long endurance events. Running history, I started running in 2013. Running is all about two things: consistency and patience. So I immediately started with 10 by 10 series, which basically means running 10 continuous days, 10 kilometers every day in the neighborhood. We choose 10 beautiful locations in Chennai city. Did 7 series of those, so added up a total mileage of 700 kilometers over 3-4 months, which was amazing to tune the legs for running. 2014-17 was all about monthly hill runs. So almost many weekends of the year we were going out in the hills, running 50k on Saturday, 50 kilometer on Sunday. So a good 100 kilometer mileage in off-road trails and with quite a bit of elevation gain. So 2017 were the international races, so there we actually push it in terms of endurance. That's like non-stop running for 30, 40 hours. And then in 2018, after building all this endurance, after 5 years, you can say, I was ready for like my big run, the 2000 kilometer solo run in Vietnam over 50 days. Okay, let's talk about ultra running. So running, if you think about running, most people think about what is shown here on the picture. Fancy running shoes, they need running watches, they will talk about coaches, about special nutrition, they will talk about strengthening, tapering, recovery, a lot of, sorry for telling, I think it's all bullshit. Running is very simple. Running is about two rules. You run regularly and you run patiently. You run comfortably, you listen to your body. If you forget about speed, you forget about distance. You just run every day in a comfortable way, and your legs, your body, your ankles, your knees are all gonna tune perfectly as your body is built to run. Our forefathers used to run to fetch their food in the wild. It's only in the last couple of generations that we have become too lazy, and hey, we want to run instantly a marathon without any proper practice, sorry, and therefore need all these artificial running aids shown over here. So rules of running, as I said, is about consistency. You have to run 4 or 5 times a week, go for long runs in the weekends in the mountains, and then be patient. Listen to your body always, don't overdo it. Running is high impact. We have now gotten into a pretty stagnant lifestyle. We sit at home, we sit in the office, we sit on the bike or in the car on the way between office and home. So the body is not moving anymore. So all these muscles which our forefathers have built while running behind their prey has kind of become inactive over the generations as we have become settlers, and has to be slowly activated again by regular running practice. Here you can see some picture from 2016, a compilation where in addition to my big solo run across Pangi and Zanskar in 2016 and in the Himalayas, we did regular long 100 kilometer runs 150-kilometer runs during long weekends throughout the year, which basically built that strength in the legs and that built that mental stamina that made me ready for those really long runs in the mountains. Race events again, it's all about running or cycling or any other industry, food, travel, stay. It's all about there's a whole industry out there that wants to sell you stuff, that wants to get your money. Nothing less is true with marathon events. People will organize fancy events where the focus is again more on competition and time rather than enjoying the run. There's no point in my view to run with 40,000 people on a road with traffic around you in a city, in a polluted city. You need to run in beautiful places in the mountains at an easy pace rather than racing yourself to death. Race events have become very expensive. They typically promote a competitive, fast running. Many people get tempted seeing pictures of finisher podiums with their friends on the social media, want to run a marathon themselves within a few weeks or months, end up with injuries, become disappointed, and give up on running. Race events also have a lot of support, like they put aid stations every 3 kilometers. For the ultra races, you have live bases, medical support, breakfast, medals, certificates. A lot of crap actually that creates again an entire ecosystem and misses out the point of truly seeing running as a way to travel as a journey through a beautiful place. So then we come to self-supported running. Self-supported running is actually the opposite of races. Here you're going to be defining your own route. You're going to not follow route markings. You're going to use navigation and maps to find your way in an unknown place. You're going to carry your own shelter. You're going to take care of your own food, hydration along the way. And this will all be about the experience rather than finishing a marathon in 3-4 hours, finishing dead on the finish line, posting a picture on Instagram, and that's it basically. This is all about the experience, about a long journey where you're gonna get closer to nature. Team versus solo. So as you go through a self-supported journey, right, you have to go minimalist. You need to reduce the luggage as much as possible. Going with a team is quite different from going solo. I mean, with a team, you always have people to help you out. You can always offload some luggage on a cyclist as you run along. You always have that mental support of somebody nearby who can catch help if needed, if any injuries or sickness occurs. Going solo is a totally different story in an unknown land, either in, say, in the Himalayas or in a foreign country. You're all by yourself, you don't speak the language, you're in a remote place, you only have your shoes and feet to depend on, so in case you need help, you're completely on your own. So it's a totally different ball game basically, makes you mentally much tougher and stronger to venture out alone. Hill running then, so it's a big difference of running a 10-kilometer neighborhood loop in the city around your home versus running up and down in the hills. Running in the hills on a regular basis again increases the strength in your legs multifold. Somebody who runs regularly in the hills can run on a flat surface much easier because you have strength in your quads and your calves so much more. So the best running practice obviously is in the trails and the hills where your ankles, your knees, your muscles are much better exercised. So typically as you run in the hills on longer distance, in general, when it's pretty steep, you're gonna have a steady walk. It's no point in running on steep inclines as you're simply gonna drain your energy unnecessary. And downhill again, as well as flat, you can run. But again, steep downhill, you have to be very careful as the impact on your knees is gonna be significant. So you should take extra care while running downhill as somewhere even with a 20% incline downhill slope, the impact on the knees doubles in force. Then long-term running, I mean, there is a big difference between running a single marathon versus running for a complete weekend, 100 kilometers, versus running for 2 weeks, 500 kilometers, versus running for 2 months where your body and your mind have to sustain across, say, 2000 kilometers. So that's a totally different ball game. Obviously, you need to do it step by step. Start doing those long runs, single runs first, then go for your weekend runs. Then plan a couple of 1 or 2 week runs in the mountains before you really go for long 1000 kilometer endurance runs. So you're not gonna focus here on schedule anymore in long runs. You're gonna run on freedom. You're a free man. You have 2 months, 2000 kilometer at your hand. So there is no time stress on your mind anymore to get to your destination within a number of days and get back to your corporate cubicle the next Monday. It's all about sustaining, so you should not overdo it. You have to avoid long-term injuries, overuse injuries, and make sure that you release your energy gradually. You cannot burn all your energy in the single day, as you have to run the next day again the same distance and the next day and the next day for months altogether. So physically, the legs, the nutrition, the sleep, the shelter, the climate, the exhaustion is there. Mentally, of course, the routes, you always have to stay on the right route, the location. The variety of the landscape definitely is an important one, which keeps you going. It provides the necessary mental stimulus to keep yourself engaged. Remember that a long endurance run is more of a mental challenge than a physical challenge. And the experiences along the way, the encounters, the beautiful unseen nature is the one that actually keeps you going, running morning till evening. Route planning, of course, if you want to plan a 2000 kilometer route, that's not like planning the marathon route for 40 kilometers, that's actually 50 marathons. And you can imagine that planning such a long route through an unknown mountain range is a Herculean task. So that is something that we'll come to in the next part, but that's of course needs a lot of time to plan such a long route. Voila, thank you for watching this first part, which focuses a little bit on ultra running and long duration self-supported journeys. In the next chapters, we're now going to talk about the planning and execution of such a long run, particularly focusing on my 2000 kilometer solo run through Vietnam. Thanks for watching, and find all the episodes on this webinar as well as a lot of other interesting webinars on my blog ultrajourneys.org.